The bloodbath in media continues. Vice News has announced its flagship Vice News Tonight program is over. And they'll be making painful layoffs and restructures to the company. Sad to see it. Sad to see it. For those that don't know, I was the founding member of Vice News. That's right. I was hired by Vice before they had a news division. And then there was a long debate over how I could actually work for the company. And the long story short of it is, through my tireless efforts, as well as several other individuals who were working there before me who convinced the higher-ups to launch a news division, we were able to actually launch a news division. And Shane Smith, the CEO, said at the Knight Foundation Awards that they never actually intended to do news until, boom, and he points to me and says, Tim Pool came in and then started working on this news stuff. So when I first started at Vice, they had something they called Vice News. They would make shorts or documentaries and then put the Vice News. They would call it like it was Vice News, but they didn't have an actual brand or channel. And then I made several documentaries. The one of which I'm most proud of is the North Korean Motorcycle Diaries. You can see right there, field producer Tim Pool, where this crew went through North Korea on motorcycles, and it was pretty amazing. And I interviewed them, and they recounted their story, and they gave us the footage. It's truly incredible, truly incredible. And then Vice News got woke and went broke, and from there, it's only gotten worse. So right now, as we are seeing, Nate Silver is getting the boot from 538. Don Lemon, of course, was fired. BuzzFeed News is gone. Tucker Carlson gets the boot. Now we're seeing more. Vice Media canceling its flagship news program. So I just want to say to all of those Vice News producers and to everybody out there who's not, but hear me out. Vice News, Vice is a company. Yeah, they got woke and they went broke. But a lot of these news producers don't care about any of that stuff. And there are some good people there. Some of them, I assume, are good people who just want to go and tell a good story on the ground. And boy, howdy, we'll take them. If you're a Vice News producer, we'll take your pitch. If you got a story that you want to pursue, you need some kind of resources or whatever. It's difficult, but we will try and find a way to pick up some of these stories that Vice News will no longer be able to carry. CNN reports Vice Media will cancel its acclaimed program Vice News Tonight as part of a broad restructuring that will result in painful cuts across the organization, the company said Thursday. In response to the current market conditions and business realities facing Vice Media Group, in the broader news and media industry, we are moving forward on some painful but necessary reductions, primarily across our news business. Co-chief executives Bruce Dixon and Josefa Lakhandwala announced in a memo to employees. Dixon and Lakhandwala, who stressed the news is core to the larger company and that it will not exit the business, added, "We are transforming Vice News to better withstand market realities and more closely align with how and where we see our audiences engaging with our content most." It's a sad story. It is, man. It's a bummer. But I do have news for all of you. If you happen to be a billionaire, or maybe you're a millionaire worth several $100 million, you have an opportunity right now to buy much of this reporting, to hire many of these individuals, and in fact, purchase the old Vice building, which is for sale for $34 million. Okay, it's 100% leased out, and Vice moved out of this property, but you can see right here, subject property. That's the old Vice building. Man, sad days, sad days. I don't know, they tore a big portion of it down, I guess, that Vice used to be in. Man, it's crazy. It's kind of sad. It really is. It is sad. You know, I remember back in the old Vice days, I remember I was in the new expansion part of the building. And there's Shane Smith, the CEO, shakes my hand, having a beer, talking about business. I told Shane Smith that we had a meeting once. He's a CEO, former CEO. And I said, "I want your job." And he says, "No, you don't. My job sucks." "No, I do." And I meant it. And here I am. And while you may have no choice but to get rid of Vice News Tonight, Timcast will pick up the slack. Because I do want that job. And I have that job. And I want to see real reporting. I want to see real news. I want to see truth and honesty. And that's what we'll strive for. The Timcast news team looks forward to working with anyone who's interested in pitching stories and producing mini docs. And we have 2 documentaries coming out. That's right. I got the job, ladies and gentlemen, because I worked hard for it and I knew what I wanted. And you can do it too. We've got a documentary from Lauren Southern coming out very soon. We have a documentary from Ben Stewart. Lauren Southern produced a documentary for us on gun control and infringement. And Ben Stewart produced a documentary on the Federal Reserve and the banking system. Both, I think, are very, very relevant in today's news cycle. This is the rest of the message from Vice News. They said, as part of this process, we've decided to streamline Vice News and make reductions in roles across our global news team to focus on growing digital video business and news documentary and series production. The funny thing is, they said it before. Every time they downsize, they say it this way. It's clear that we need to accelerate Vice News' transition to these platforms where its biggest audience are, on our owned and operated channels where we have a direct relationship with our audience, on Paramount Plus with Showtime, Fast Channels, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and via documentary programming for streaming platforms such as Netflix, HBO Max, and Tubi. We believe this strategic focus strongly positions Vice incredibly important news coverage for the future. Yeah, but they laid off a bunch of people. Like a ton of people at Vice are gone. And some of them, well, good riddance. Some of them were ideologues, and that was the problem. Some of them were just reporters who didn't know a whole lot. I think the strangest thing I ever experienced is after I left Vice and left Fusion, there were people that I had worked with on the ground at Vice who told me not to cover the news. It's the weirdest thing. When I said I was going to go to Sweden, and I made a GoFundMe saying, Donald Trump's claiming all this bad stuff's happening in Sweden, I'm going to go check it out. I got messages from former Vice News staff saying, don't do it. And I was like, huh? Yeah, they were like, don't go. Why? If Trump is lying, let me prove him wrong. And said, no, don't. It was weird. It was almost like they knew Donald Trump was right. Fascinating. And what did I find? Well, it was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It wasn't as crazy as people thought it was, but the crime certainly was up. People were associating their worldview in a city like Baltimore or Chicago with Sweden. And so while Sweden saw a massive spike in crime, it wasn't like it was anywhere close to what Chicago was like. And I told them that. I said, look, man, in Chicago, crime is way worse. So while I understand people are upset because crime was going up, it's still really, really, really nice in Sweden. But they're experiencing crime. And for many of them, it was the first time. So that I was not surprised by. What was surprising to me was that I had Vice News journalists abandoning principle for ideology. What a shock. But now look where they are. They get to join the ranks of everybody else. And this means it's the end. They say the award-winning Vice News Tonight will come to an end, with its final broadcast being May 25th. The program, which has received the most Emmy nominations of any newscast for 5 consecutive years, has been on the air for 7 years and just celebrated its 1,000th episode last month. Employees who are being laid off were set to be notified on Thursday. The company will provide them severance and work with the Vice union on the matter, the people familiar with the situation said. The restructuring comes as Vice Media, once the darling of the industry, explores a sale. It's so sad. In a memo of her own, Subrata Day, executive vice president of Vice News, acknowledged the larger forces at play, saying the cuts are the result of tough financial realities, which continue to challenge the business in the midst of sales process and changes to our funding model. Yeah. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And Vice News didn't really have either. They're not dying the hero, and they didn't really become the villain. They just kind of became irrelevant. They didn't know what they were producing. They didn't care. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you my view. And a shout out to Shane Smith. I still think Shane Smith is a good dude. I think he made a lot of mistakes, and that's fine. He was older than me when I started working for Vice. I think he was like 45 when I was like 26 or 27. And the mistakes he made was not keeping up with the machine. But it was obvious to me as a young person entering this company that Shane Smith was primarily focused on appealing to his age group, Gen X. And so the outcome is going to be obvious. When the company was trying to appeal to an aging demographic, they started to lose money. And then when they brought in young people who didn't have any idea what was going on with innovation or technology, they went ideological. And this caused a chaotic clash within this company. I look at it and I'm just like, even now, the message they point out makes no sense. We're going to do this, that for all these other companies. And I'm just like, sure, okay, dude. It's going to be another 4 years and they're going to be like, we're firing everybody. Meanwhile, Timcast will be something different. Timcast will persist. Because we're not just going to launch one single company. We're launching self-sustaining cultural forces. We're launching shows that will sustain themselves. And they'll just be what they are. The reality of the world is that not every musician is a rock star. But there are many musicians who make a living playing music. Not every actor is a celebrity. But there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of actors. Most actors you've never heard of. They do small roles and they do them consistently and they make a living doing it. And you've never seen them in a major movie. Because people are too hyper-focused on the top. The real strategy should be to create cultural forces and businesses that are sustainable and last a long time. You ever drive through a city or your neighborhood and you see a building and there's a big sign and they'll say like Voldemort? I know it sounds like Voldemort. And you'll be like, I don't know what that business is. And then you'll like look up a directory and it'll say they do plastic emulsion or something. And you're just like, huh, you never thought about it, did you? All the businesses that exist that you've never heard of that are large and generate millions of dollars. And that's the point. You don't need to be the shining city as a corporation atop the hill. You just need to make things that work for people and help expand positive ideas and create a mass benefit. But I think Vice was too insistent on trying to be that shining company, the new light, the CNN of the street. And that's why they are falling apart. But it is what it is, my friends. The end of an era. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.